What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 335 of AskGSM here today for Wednesday, April 29th, 2020. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. As always, if you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, let's get right into it here first with Elena the Y from YouTube. The first question was, that one Hager-Moxley match aside, AEW Dynamite is easily the best show under the quarantine era. I tried to catch up on a month of NXT on the WWE Network, and I'm just not feeling it. None of these shows should probably still be running during a pandemic, but if I were allowed to make a selfish choice, I would keep Dynamite going, if only for Chris Jericho's antics, and let everything else shut down under the quarantine lifts. What show would you keep? That's a good question. And people have been asking me, what shows are worth watching during the pandemic. I think I got a question about that last week. For me, there's really not many wrestling shows running right now anyway. Impact is still doing shows, kind of. They did the Rebellion show in two parts this past week and last week, which was all right. It's not must-see, but it's all right. NXT, it's been good. It's been better lately than it was when the whole pandemic first started. The issue is that it's still not the same. I feel like NXT suffers even more than Raw and SmackDown do from not having a crowd. Same with AEW, but I feel like AEW can still kind of make up for it by having the wrestlers in the audience, something that I guess NXT can't really do, or just WWE in the whole. For whatever reason, I don't know if they even wanted to entertain the idea or they just can't in that building. I don't know. Maybe they thought it would look tacky. I'm not sure. But the empty arena shows for NXT, it's just not the same. The shows are still good. But Dynamite, I would have to agree more often than not, maybe not like last week, but more often than not, it is the better show. So yeah, I would agree. SmackDown still sucks. It sucked even well before the whole pandemic happened. So it's not a case where there was no audience, the show isn't worth watching. Dude, SmackDown has been abysmal for months. Ever since they moved to Fox. Even before that, it wasn't great, but it was better than what it is now. Raw, I've enjoyed on the whole, so if I said, keep Raw over Dynamite, you'd probably think I'm a fucking psycho person. So I'm not going to say that. I would keep Dynamite. I'm going to have to agree with you, but I got to give credit where it's due. Raw has been a very serviceable, entertaining, enjoyable show more often than not, in my opinion, with the empty arena stuff. Even before WrestleMania, I thought the emphasis on the promos was really well done. They're not replaying as many old matches anymore. Like, they'll replay clips from an old WWE 24. They did that this week with Becky Lynch. They did it a few weeks ago with Drew McIntyre and his Chronicle. I thought that was well done. That's an effective way of killing time without replaying a full-on, pay-per-view match from 10 years ago or a couple of years ago, whatever. So, if I had to pick, Dynamite would probably be the show that I keep. But even Dynamite's not the same without an audience. That goes without saying. But, like last week's episode, I thought it was full of squash matches, and they had fucking Dustin Rhodes versus Kip Sabian in the main event. That's not a main event match. I know they really had to stretch the content out so they can get 4 weeks out of it. I know given the circumstances, they can't be blamed for that. But, a lot of the matches we're getting mean absolutely nothing. And we're not getting the same stars on these shows because a lot of the people had to miss these shows. People like the Young Bucks, Nyla Rose, Adam Page, the Lucha Bros, Pac. They all had to miss the latest batch of AEW Dynamite tapings. So they're using the same people week in and week out. The Best Friends, Jimmy Havoc, Cody, Kenny Omega, people like that. Elena's second question. So from what I can gather, Drake Maverick is still part of the Cruiserweight tournament as somehow even less than an independent contractor, and WWE has no plans to rehire him after he finishes his purported final matches. Not that a rehire would be quote-unquote ideal in context, for lack of better phrasing, but the situation as it seems like they're exploiting the man. For a company that wants to be escapist entertainment, laying off someone and using their upcoming unemployment as a subplot in a tournament is just ew. What do you make of Drake Maverick in the Cruiserweight tourney? There's a lot of differing opinions on this, and listen, I completely agree. I find it completely fucking pointless. I love Drake Maverick. I think the guy is very talented. It's very weird, though, that he's getting more TV time now than he ever did at any other point in his WWE tenure. There were at least 3 or 4 different segments dedicated to Drake Maverick on last week's NXT. They did that pre-match video package on the guy. He was in the match itself with Jake Atlas. They interviewed him afterwards on the steps of the arena, after he lost. And then they interviewed him again after the show for WWE.com. And he was on the bump earlier on that day. I wouldn't be surprised if they threw him on the fucking After the Bell podcast to promote his upcoming unemployment. I just don't get it. It's definitely his choice. I'm sure they asked him, like, hey, we're going to let you go, but if you still want to, we can keep you in the tournament. The guy loves the WWE. He loves professional wrestling. He doesn't want to leave. Clearly, if you watch the video that he put up, he doesn't want to leave. Maybe in a part of his mind, he's thinking, hey, if I can impress them in these next few matches, they'll either bring me back or rehire me. What kind of fucking precedent does that set, though? They fired the guy. If you're going to bring him back, bring everyone else back. Again, I like Drake Maverick, and he's probably more valuable than, in my opinion, an Eric Rowan or a Sarah Logan. But at the same time, though, why would you bring back Sarah Logan, who is, she's not coming back, but there were reports and rumors that she might be used last week on Raw, and she didn't show up this week either. But why would you bring her back and Drake Maverick when you let go of everyone else? Not that I want to see EC3 rehired. They completely ruined and buried and underutilized the guy easily, in my opinion. And I don't use that word buried lightly, but they absolutely buried him with the short time that they had him for the last 2 years. Maybe not more so when NXT was really on the main roster. But anyway, with Drake Maverick, the whole storyline is fucking weird. If the guy's not sticking around and it's not a work, and even then that would be fucked up if they faked firing him just so they could use it as a storyline. I just don't get it. Based off how they're promoting him, you want to see him win the tournament. He's not going to because he no longer works there. So I feel like it's a lose-lose. They rehire him, he gets his job back, but then, it sets a bad precedent for everyone else they let go. They very well may bring him back down the road, I'm not saying that. But for just right now, it's a very real situation. And when they blur the lines between storyline and real, that's when they do their best work. WWE, that is. But I feel like in this situation, with someone's job being on the line, and they actually legitimately let him go, then I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. If he came out and said, listen, I'm retiring, I'm done with WWE when my contract, like CM Punk, I'm done when my contract expires in X amount of months, when this tournament is over, then I'll leave. But if not, and I win the tournament, then I'll stick around, whatever. They did that with Tommy Dreamer a number of years ago, 10, 11 years ago. They did it with CM Punk, of course, and a few other people. That makes sense when it's his choice. It's not his choice. He was let go, without warning, really, that day 2 weeks ago. So, I'm not a fan of the storyline, personally. I'm glad they're making the most of it, or he's making the most of it. And at the end of the day, if it's his choice, I can't really say, oh, fuck this company. It's really fucked up for the company to do that, in my opinion. But again, he's obviously agreeing to do all this shit. So how bad? I don't feel bad for Drake Maverick. I really don't in this case. I felt bad when he got fired, but I don't feel bad for him in the sense that, they're exploiting the man. He agreed to fucking do it. I don't feel bad for him at all in this case. I do think it is fucked up for WWE to use his storyline, though, as part of the story. To use his real-life situation as part of the storyline. I do agree that is fucked up. They shouldn't have done that. It's cool he's still part of the tournament, but if he is still indeed getting fired when this whole thing is over, then what was the point of promoting the man if you know he's not going to win? It just seems like it's a waste of time. The next question, also from Lane of the Y, their third question here. I didn't get the Triple H Appreciation Night, quote-unquote, on segment on SmackDown. Is Vince McMahon cutting a promo about how WWE is boring and stupid funny? Because seeing the owner of the promotion shame his own work just makes the show even more nihilistic and depressing. Yeah, that whole thing was weird. I enjoyed it personally. Not when Vince came out. That was weird, I agree. When it was Shawn and Triple H, and they were making fun of themselves, and they were, they brought in Ric Flair over FaceTime and Stephanie over FaceTime. I didn't mind it. I honestly enjoyed it. The whole Vince McMahon thing, nothing of what he said made any sense. It's just completely fucking, it was random. He was making fun of the Bayley This Is Your Life segment and the Katie Vick thing. The Katie Vick thing, I get. Was Triple H behind the scenes involved in the Bayley thing? I don't even really know why that was brought up. It's just a bad television segment. Easily one of the worst in recent Raw history, if not of all time. I'm not really sure what the purpose of that was. Maybe because Bayley trained under Triple H in NXT and, she was in NXT and then they ruined her on the main roster with that dumbass segment. I don't know. I don't really know why they brought that up multiple times. They were like, oh, it's not Bayley's fault. Well, no shit, it's not Bayley's fault. It was the fucking company's fault for putting her in that position and really ruining any momentum that she had up to that point. Yeah, I don't really know what the purpose of that was. I like the Triple H Appreciation Night thing. They made the most of it. It's not the same without an audience. I totally get that. The Vince thing, though, I will agree, was completely bizarre. And that just seems to be his state of mind right now. That at WrestleVotes account, which I do put a lot of stock in because a lot of the reports seem to be accurate more often than not. They had tweeted out either late Friday, early Saturday, that the way that Vince came across on SmackDown last week is how he's been acting ever since the XFL closed down a few weeks ago and ever since they went bankrupt. And I guess his whole mindset is that, he's going, not that he's going crazy. I mean, the guy's always been crazy. He's been getting fucking 2 hours of sleep his entire life. But I'm talking about in terms of the XFL, his baby, or what was supposed to be his baby, went bankrupt. He doesn't know what the fuck's going on right now. He doesn't know what he's going to do. He got deemed an essential business. And it's just a very weird time right now. We're all going crazy one way or another. Being, cooped up in our houses, quarantining, whatever. I'm starting to lose my mind. We're all starting to lose their minds. Vince McMahon, especially so. The guy gets no sleep. He's just a fucking madman, and it really shined through in that segment. So I agree. It was absolutely bizarre. Joe M. from YouTube as well, his first question was, how far do you think Austin Aries could have gone in WWE? Admittedly, I don't really pay much attention to stuff that goes on outside of WWE, so I don't know too much about his attitude problems and all that. But from his time in NXT, I became a big fan of his, and I honestly thought he was their best all-around performer in NXT. I thought he was great in the ring, great on the mic, and had a pretty good look for a guy his size. What do you think held him back? The Austin Aries situation I still don't understand all these years later. There were reports at the time that they let him go, that they fired, or no, rather that he left on his own. He came out and said months later on the Talk is Jericho podcast, I didn't leave on my own. They fired me. I've never really gotten a clear... I mean, it's the guy himself, obviously, but, he could be lying. It's not that Austin Aries is a notorious liar, but, yeah, so with the attitude stuff, that goes on well beyond WWE. There were not rumors of that, but people claiming that Austin Aries had a terrible attitude in Ring of Honor. That's what kind of led to his departure from Ring of Honor and why they didn't really bring him back in 2015. Like, he left Impact in 2015. He did one return match with Ring of Honor. Like, if he was on better terms with the company, I know he had issues with Jim Cornette. If he was on better terms with Ring of Honor, then don't you think they would have brought him back for many more matches than just one? Like Samoa Joe, for example. He left TNA. He went right back into Ring of Honor. He had a number of matches there, from what I understand. I wasn't really watching Ring of Honor when Samoa Joe first came back in early 2015. I didn't start watching full-time until, the summer of 2015. But, he did a lot of stuff with Ring of Honor, and then he went to NXT. Austin Aries was out of the picture. He left Impact, I want to say, in mid-2015, if not, late 2015. There was a while there where he wasn't doing anything. I want to say mid-2015 because I know he was advertised or did a match in Ring of Honor in that summer. And he just wasn't doing anything for 6 months. And then he was hired by NXT at the onset of 2016. And then same thing, not that he really had any heat on him in NXT from what I understand, because he had a really good run there. I don't know. I feel like if he really had that big of attitude issues, in Impact, it didn't really seem to be a big issue. There were some rumors that he felt like he was either being underutilized. I mean, the guy has had a perennial chip on his shoulder. I think that's very well documented. But he still succeeded, and he still did really well, and he left on his own terms in 2015. It's not like they fired him, I know he had that whole Christy Hemme segment or incident years ago when he put his crotch in her face when he wasn't, not that he wasn't supposed to, but it wasn't part of the show is what I'm trying to get at here. He was a heel and whatever, and he feels that it may have been blown out of proportion. I'm not really sure what the whole story behind that was, but I remember that incident. That got heat on him. He's not a notorious asshole, I would say. I mean, I've only met the guy once, and he was really nice when I met him a number of years ago. But nonetheless, though, with Austin Aries, NXT was very good to him. He had that debut match on TakeOver in Dallas, which he was kind of overshadowed on because Shinsuke Nakamura also debuted on that show, so all the focus was on him. But he still had a pretty good match with Baron Corbin, and he won. He had the great match with Nakamura at the subsequent takeover. He beat No Way Jose in Brooklyn, and then he got hurt. So had he not gotten hurt, and then he was supposed to feud with Hideo Itami. So had he not gotten hurt, he probably still would have been a top star in NXT. I don't know if he would have won the NXT championship, but I think he would have done fairly well for himself. And then the opportunity to join the main roster came about because he was a commentator for 205 Live. So because of that, they put him on the commentary team, put him in the Cruiserweight division, and I thought he did really well there. It's not like they buried him in the main roster. Yes, he lost 3 consecutive times to Neville, but that was because they had bigger plans for Neville. Neville had just won the championship. He was the hottest thing going at that point. Do I think Austin Aries should have beaten Neville at one point or another? Yes, I do. I do think he should have won the championship in the end. Akira Tozawa's big moment was great. It lasted all of 5 or 6 days. They took the belt right off of Akira. I think he won it on the pre-Raw before SummerSlam, the last Raw before SummerSlam, and then he lost it right back to Neville on the SummerSlam kickoff show. I do think Aries would have been a better person for that spot. I mean, they already fired the guy by that point. It just seemed really, really random that they would put so much time into promoting Austin Aries on NXT and specifically on the main roster. It's not like, oh, they saw all this stock in him, they saw all this talent on NXT, but not on the main roster. I mean, I guess they didn't see enough in him to make him a single star in the heavyweight division. I get that, but not that I don't get why they would do that. But you know, I could see where it's like, okay, they underutilized him on the main roster because they never really gave him a chance in the singles ranks. I get that. But it's like even in the Cruiserweight division, he was promoted as a top star for the entire time that he was there, and then he just randomly got released. I still don't know the story around that 3 years later. That still not bothers me, but like it just still boggles my mind that they would just let him go out of nowhere because, I mean, there was no AEW at that point, but even back in 2017, they were really not voluntarily letting people go unless they really had no use for him. For them to just let go of Austin Aries seemed really random to me because they tried so hard to bring him in after he left Impact and they brought him in. Again, just very odd. I still don't get it. He was not even there for a full year. I mean, I guess he was. He debuted in early 2016, left in the summer of 2017. Just very weird. Like, they didn't care enough to keep him because they didn't think he would be any real competition in any other organization. And honestly, he went to Impact for all of 2018, had a very good run over there. But what has he done since then? I think he went to MLW about a year or two ago. I haven't really heard anything about Austin Aries since then. He's really been laying low. And honestly, if I was AEW, I would be looking into the guy, but I feel like there's a different story there. Either he doesn't want to go or they just don't want him. The same reason why they don't want... I mean, Ryback's a different... I mean, I really like Ryback, but maybe he has his own health issues and stuff, which I know he was dealing with a couple of years ago. Ryback, like, for example, Enzo and Cass, why wouldn't they want them? Because they're just not really... They're not a top value tag team. So far, in my opinion, AEW hasn't really brought in anyone that's going to attract a lot of heat from fans. And heat in terms of, like, why would you bring in this woman beater like fucking Teddy Hart? Who the fuck would want him in the company? As talented as he is, he has domestic violence issues and stuff like that, history of that type of shit, from what I understand. So why would they want to hire the guy? Enzo and Cass, not that he allegedly was, accused of rape and all this other stuff. He didn't actually do it, whatever. But still, the guy, he had heat in WWE even before all that shit happened. So I don't think Cody wants any part of that. So that's why they haven't really hired Enzo or Cass up to this point. You know, Ryback is a different story. Maybe Austin Aries does have some sort of well-known attitude issue behind the scenes, and Cody's aware of that. The Bucks are aware of that. Omega's aware of that, and they just don't want him in the company. To me, he would be the perfect fit there. But I haven't really seen anyone bring that up. I mean, the guy wasn't even a part of All In. They had all this Impact talent on the All In show. 2 years ago, they had Brian Cage on the show. They had a lot of Impact superstars. Fucking Pentagon Jr. was an Impact at that point. And they used him on All In, but not Austin Aries. Like, how weird is that? I thought that was really bizarre. But to answer your question, I know that's a really long answer to your question, but to answer it directly, do I think that, how far do I think he could have gone in WWE? I do think maybe not world champion, that he was an Impact. Not to say that he was a big fish in a small pond. His size absolutely worked against him. I mean, you're asking me what held him back. I mean, his size, obviously. Yeah, he had a good look. He was a great talker, very good wrestler. Vince McMahon is a big size guy, literally and figuratively. He's big on big guys, not so much on the smaller guys. Yeah, Daniel Bryan is small. I don't know. I mean, I think he might be taller than Austin Aries. I'm not sure. I don't know. Daniel Bryan came up in a different time, and with Aries, they probably just realized they look, listen, we'll cut bait. That we don't really want to be associated with him right now. I don't know. I'm not really sure. But I do think that his size had a lot to do with it, because they took one look at the guy and were like, he's a cruiserweight. Like, look how tall he is. He's a fucking cruiserweight. I'm sure is what Vince McMahon's reaction was. And then, for whatever reason, they let him go. They had no plans for him. They jobbed him out to Neville 3 times, and that was it. There was really nowhere to go in that division but down. So that's probably why they let him go. I mean, the attitude issues may have also come into play, but the fact that, again, I find it very weird that even all these years later, he's still not employed by any major wrestling organization. Yes, he was in Impact in 2018, but look at Impact. Impact's another place where he was there all of 2018, had a very good run there as the Impact World Champion for the better... I think he was Impact World Champion for almost the entire time he was with the company in 2018. I think he lost it to Pentagon Jr. and then won it back soon after. But other than that, he was the world champion the entire time. From literally the moment he returned, he became the world champion. And then he dropped the belt to Johnny Mundo. He's told his side of the story, but he didn't want to do the job and all this other weird-ass shit, you know? Like, so he got right up after not selling Johnny Mundo's End of the World move or whatever it was. Johnny Impact, whatever the fuck you want to call him. He gets up, and then he just walks away, flips off the crowd and the commentators, Don Callis, and then we never saw him again. You would think, okay, like they'll bring him back, and there were rumors that, yeah, his contract ended at Bound for Glory, but that he would be brought back at some point, that he would be brought back to do whatever in 2019, and he never was. He did a few shots in Ring of Honor in 2018, and that was it. He was never brought back, and he was not used at all anywhere in 2019. He wasn't in Impact, he wasn't in Ring of Honor, he wasn't in AEW. Not that you have to be working for promotions like that to be successful, but let's be real here. I mean, with someone the caliber of Austin Aries, who still, in my opinion, has a lot left to offer, why wouldn't he be employed by any major wrestling company in 2020? There's got to be something more to the story there. I know that was a really long answer, but I'm a big fan of Austin Aries, so I really wanted to answer that in detail, so I apologize. Joe's second question: if Velveteen Dream is gone for a bit while this investigation is taking place, would you be happy to see Dexter Lumis fill the void by feuding with Adam Cole after he popped up in the tag team match last week, or would it be too much too soon? That's a good question. So the whole Velveteen Dream situation, I'm not going to really say too much about it until we get the facts. I mean, it's been almost a week now, and the whole news about it broke on Friday. In an update on the situation with Dream, so real quickly, for anyone not aware of what went on, some Reddit user posted a question on Wrestling Reddit, whatever, back on Thursday, Friday, claiming, hey, Velveteen Dream has been in my DMs, who I guess Dream had put up an Instagram story soon before that, saying my DMs are open. Very weird. I mean, not many celebrities, wrestlers do that, especially someone on his, of his caliber that could be very well the next NXT champion. Very weird. The person posted pictures of the DMs that the two traded back and forth, asking about, them training and all this other stuff. Pretty harmless things. And then they showed, some picture. I guess there was some inappropriate picture of Dream that was shared around. Thankfully, I didn't see it. I don't want to see it. Don't send me that shit. I haven't seen it on my timeline. Thank the fuck God. Why the fuck anyone would want to share that shit anyway? Like when the whole Rollins thing broke years ago. Even with the women, it's just not appropriate. I mean, if you want to go out of your way to seek it out, that's totally fine. Listen, if you want to go find it yourself, I'm not shaming you, but like to put it on your fucking timeline, fuck you. Because then all your followers have to see that shit too. Thankfully, that didn't happen with the Velveteen Dream thing. I just heard about it. That an inappropriate picture of him, which I guess he claimed, he didn't deny in that post. He put up a tweet soon after saying that a picture of me was leaked without my consent. A third party and I are looking into it, blah, blah, blah. So I'm sure it was him. It just may have been taken out of context that he wasn't the one who sent it to that person, or it was just, I don't know. I don't really know what the situation is. We don't know for a fact that it was him. The whole story here that I forgot to mention, that this person that he was interacting with over DMs was underaged. And apparently he was sending voice messages to them asking what school they went to, how old they were, shit like that. Very weird. Very weird. So we don't know if it's him. What I was going to say was that in an update on the situation was that the original Reddit post has been deleted. So why they would take that shit down after they were... I had heard they were called out for being racist. I'm not sure what they said that made them a racist. I don't know. But very weird stuff. The post got deleted and that was it. Anyway, to answer your question, I mean, they haven't yet to, even before all this shit happened, they had never announced Adam Cole versus Dream for the NXT Championship. They were doing all the takeover matches a couple weeks ago, and they did them all in the empty arenas except for Dream and Cole. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking maybe they're trying to hold off on doing it in front of a crowd. I mean, you can't drag on Cole and Dream forever. I don't want to see a 6-month feud without at least one match. You can't do the match. I mean, yeah, they've done that before with like Gargano and who was it? Finn Balor. They dragged that on for a while before they finally did their first match in February. They've been doing that feud since October, I think. Gargano was also off of TV for a while with a legitimate injury. Unless they take Dream off of TV, I just don't see a situation where they can hold out for that long, because it might be a while, dude. It's still only late April. I don't see them getting back to doing normal shows until at least August, if not later than that. So I know it's an essential business and they're still running shows in their mind, and it's an essential business, whatever. But there's still no fans. And I don't think there are going to be any fans for the foreseeable future. I fucking hate to say that because I was pooping on people who were saying that a while ago, saying, oh, don't overreact. But it very well seems, based off of shit that I've seen, that we are not going to get any fans in these crowds for wrestling shows for a very long time. At least for the next couple of months, at the very least. So with that being said, how long can you drag out the feud for? Maybe they take Dream off of TV again, which he already was off of TV late last year with that injury. For about 5 months, he was gone, 4 or 5 months. So maybe they write him off again or write off Adam Cole. I don't know. Or no, I'm sorry. You say write off of Velvet. Obviously, you wouldn't write off Adam Cole and then keep Dream if this whole investigation is going on. He doesn't have to be on the show tonight. I mean, they've had weeks where like Adam Cole isn't even on the show. The guy has not defended his championship on TV since fucking February. So, I mean, he doesn't have to be on the show tonight. Adam Cole, that is. And they can maybe wait a week or two until we get more details on this Velveteen Dream situation. But in the meantime, do you do Dexter Lumis versus Adam Cole, is your question. In my opinion, the answer is no. I don't think so. I know it wouldn't make sense because Lumis has been stalking the Undisputed Era in recent weeks. Personally, I don't really want to see that. I like Dexter Lumis. The gimmick is growing on me. I wasn't a big Samuel Shaw fan in Impact. Just kind of bored me. I mean, he kind of stood out to me, honestly, the least out of anyone in that NXT Breakout Tournament, except for maybe Joaquin Wilde, who is very good. His character just fucking bores me to shit. Joaquin Wilde, he seems like a heel. Why is he a face? That's a whole other issue for another day. Dexter Lumis, though, he was involved, if you remember, in that NXT Breakout Tournament. He was gone. He was eliminated in the first round, I think, by Bronson Reed. And then we hadn't seen him since up until like a week or a month or so ago. So with that being said, with Dexter Lumis, do you rush him into the championship picture? The answer is no. He's not that big of a star, and if you feed him to Adam Cole, and he's not going to win, obviously, then where do you go with him from there? I mean, Jordan Miles was a different situation. I think Jordan Miles was infinitely more talented than Dexter Lumis, in my opinion. But then he said some shit and got himself fired. So that was a different issue. That was a different thing altogether. I mean, I know he went for the NXT Championship, and then we never saw him again after that. That was a different thing. I think people can, if it's the right person, they can go for the top title from the get-go and then still be a top performer. Dexter Lumis, I feel like he might peak in this program and then never be utilized as a real meaningful player again. So I'd rather not see him peak too early. I'd rather see them gradually build him up. It's hard to determine who's over and who's not without an audience. That's the real tough part about these wrestling shows, because a lot of these shows, wrestling is not the same without an audience. Not only in terms of enthusiasm and energy and just creating an atmosphere for these shows, but also determining who should be pushed and who should be not pushed. They could very well put the fucking belt on Jinder Mahal right now, and they wouldn't give a shit because there's no fans to boo it. Yeah, they may get a negative reaction online like when Charlotte Flair won the NXT Women's Championship, but the company doesn't give a fuck. There's no crowd there. They can't poop on it. They can't do anything, so it doesn't even really matter. They can't hijack the show. They're living in fantasy land right now. Is WWE and all these other companies, but specifically WWE, who love to do all this shit about like, oh, let's fuck the fans on purpose and let's do this just to spite them. They do that shit a lot more than any other company I've ever seen. Anyway, though, for the Cole and Lumis thing, the answer is no. Maybe you could do Roderick Strong and Dexter Lumis. I mean, I think Undisputed Era probably would have been called up after WrestleMania had this whole shit not happened. I agree with the decision to keep them down in NXT until there's an actual crowd, because that's something I do not want to see rushed if there's no audience. It will not be the same if there's no audience there. People need to realize, casual viewers, I mean, they were a part of the NXT Survivor Series build last year, but then Undisputed Era, they're a big fucking deal. And the only way they're going to realize that, casual viewers that is, if they hear the Undisputed Era get this monster raucous reaction from a regular crowd, like they would have the net after WrestleMania if they did indeed debut. So anyway, I wouldn't rush into Cole and Loomis. Maybe you could do it as a one-off match. I would rather see Adam Cole and Keith Lee. That's an idea. Keith Lee has no competition right now, so why the fuck not? Title for title, maybe. I like Velveteen Dream. He would be the right person to take the championship off of Cole. But then I started thinking to myself, if that fell through, who else could you put in that spot? Keith Lee and Adam Cole. Did they have a match on TV? I feel like they may have. I know we saw Cole and Dijakovic last year. I feel like they may have had a match as part of like the NXT, that Worlds Collide tournament they did about a year ago. I think they had a match a part of that tournament. Other than that, I don't know if they've ever had a televised match one-on-one. In tag team matches, maybe one-on-one, I can't remember. So that would be a good feud, if nothing else. I think that'd be an idea. Anyway, at CMattingly97 from Twitter, what's next for Brock Lesnar? It's tough to say. I was thinking about that myself. In a perfect world, if Bobby Lashley actually meant something, then Brock and Bobby would be like, boom, right there. Like, that makes the most sense. Unfortunately, Bobby Lashley's still in the process of being rebuilt right now. He's doing the whole, I do not want to see Bobby and Brock with Lana in Bobby's corner. That's a fucking joke. He's a joke right now. They're having him beat, who did they beat this week? Denzel Jornet. He beat No Way Jose a few weeks ago. He was flipping tires last week. Whoop-de fucking do. He's got to actually be rebuilt in order to really mean something again. So you can't really rush into that match. I'm really not sure. If you keep Brock on Raw, who else is there on Raw for him to face? He's already beaten Ricochet. He's already beaten Rey Mysterio. I'm trying to think of baby faces on Raw that Brock could feud with. Drew, I do not want to see Drew and Brock again. They could have a better match than they did at WrestleMania. But, I feel like we see that all the time. The last, 2 years they've done that with Brock? Where whoever he lost to at WrestleMania or faced at WrestleMania, he faced off in a rematch with at SummerSlam. We saw that last year with Seth Rollins and Brock. And we saw the year before that with Brock and Roman. In 2017, who was it? 2017, he beat Goldberg at Mania. He had another completely different match at SummerSlam. I don't want to see him face Drew again at SummerSlam. I really don't. I guess it would make sense, but there's no automatic rematches anymore anyway, so why would you even do that? So if it isn't Drew, Aleister Black maybe, but do you have Brock lose twice in a row? I don't want to see Aleister Black get beat by Brock. I don't know. I'm trying to think of someone that he could beat and it would be okay. Rey Mysterio would make sense, but we've already seen that before. Who else is on Raw? AJ's still a heel right now. Maybe if they turn him into a babyface, Brock and Edge, maybe? Maybe. That's an idea. We've never seen that feud, I don't think. I don't think they ever did that back when Brock was in the company the first time. Obviously, Brock came back after Edge retired in 2012. Brock came back in 2012. Edge retired a year earlier. The first time around, they may have crossed paths one or two times on SmackDown back in 02-03. Edge got hurt in 03. He didn't come back until after Brock left the company. So the only time they would have ever really crossed paths was in late 02, early 03. And I can't remember many matches, if any matches they had. So Edge and Brock would be cool. That might be an idea. We have not seen Edge since WrestleMania. So Edge comes back, immediately gets laid out by Brock. Why Brock would want to face Edge, I don't know, but it's an idea. And Edge can lose. Would you have him lose his second match back? I don't think it's a big deal. It's fucking Edge. He's okay. So, yeah, Edge and Brock maybe. Again, Brock and Bobby, if built up the right way. I know Bobby's a heel, but Brock isn't a heel. He's not a face. He's Brock fucking Lesnar, okay? We've already seen Brock and Randy before. Brock and AJ would be cool. I'm not really sure how you get there, but it's an idea. Again, Raw is a better roster than SmackDown does. SmackDown, you could do Brock and Sheamus. That's an unprecedented program. But again, Sheamus is on SmackDown. Brock is apparently still on Raw. Those rules barely affect Brock. The guy was drafted to SmackDown last year and then immediately showed right back up on Raw less than a month later. So what purpose did that serve? of Brock going to SmackDown, it was so fucking dumb. It was so stupid. Like, why would you even bother drafting him to SmackDown if he was going to end up right back up on Raw soon after, you know? What a waste. But, yeah, I was thinking about that. Sheamus and Brock would be cool. Brock and Bobby, but Sheamus is on SmackDown, and Brock and Bobby, as cool as it would be, Bobby doesn't mean anything right now. So I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how to answer that question. I would keep him off TV, if nothing else, for a while. I feel like they always rush him back. And listen, I love Brock working the B-level pay-per-views, but we do not need Brock until at least SummerSlam. There is no reason for him to be back anytime soon. If he ain't the champion, if he ain't going for the championship, there is no reason for Brock to be brought back anytime soon. And listen, I love Brock. The more he's going to mean more, not that he should show up 4 times a year, but like I feel like we see Brock a lot, or if we don't see Brock a lot, he's just always around and he's always champion. He's always involved in the title in the title chase. Bring him back down the road. It'll mean more for a fresh feud. People will be more receptive to Brock, receptive towards Brock than they were before. It's like, oh, Brock is always around. He's always doing the same thing, blah, blah, blah. You know, I would hold off on bringing Brock back for a little while, at least in my opinion. At noob_n_co1991 from Twitter, what are your thoughts on Apollo Crews being out of the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, and is his push over? It sucks, but it seems like it is a work, and that they'll either work Apollo back into the match. I mean, someone else asked me a question about this too. But it sucks. I mean, to me, it doesn't make any sense. I thought it was a work. It very well could be legitimate, but I feel like we would have heard about that by now if it was a real injury and he has to be pulled from the match. I don't know. I feel like they did that to protect Apollo on Raw, not have him get beat by Andrade. If it is a work, to me makes absolutely no sense. Why would you put all this effort into rehabbing Apollo Crews, making him mean something for the first time in forever, and then just when his momentum is at its hottest, you take him out of the match? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Unless there's some sort of grand plan, and I'll get to it later, but someone suggested, oh, maybe this is an opportunity for Buddy Murphy to join the match. Buddy Murphy already lost this qualifier. Listen, Buddy Murphy in the match would be great, but then fucking put him in the match to begin with. To tease people with the idea that they might actually do something with Apollo Crews for once, which they weren't ever going to. But it's nice for him to get a little nice run for a while, pick up some meaningful wins and shit like that. To take him right out of the match defeats the purpose of rehabbing him in the first place. Why not just do that with Rey Mysterio? Do that with Mysterio. Like, the guy has nothing to lose. If they give a Rey Mysterio a few wins and then have him get hurt, quote unquote, that to me would make sense. With Apollo, why even bother rebuilding him if you were just going to take him out of the match? Again, it might be speaking too soon. They very well could re-add him or said that he's not, he is cleared to compete and he might find a way into the match anyway. I don't know, but I just thought that was really silly. Is this push over? I mean, it could be. As soon as it started, it could very well already be over. I guess time will tell. His second question, what are your thoughts and opinions on WWE 2K Battlegrounds revealed on Monday? To be honest, it's WWE 2K's version of WWE All-Stars. However, it's way too early to have opinions on it. We'll have to wait until more info releases a while down the road. So I saw the trailer, the 25-second trailer. I don't know. So with the games, first of all, I loved All-Stars. I thought All-Stars was a great game. Some people didn't like it. Honestly, I thought it would be a shit game. It looked dumb as fuck. Why would I want to have all this over-the-top dumb shit? I played it. I got it for my birthday when I turned 16, I think. I think I got it for my birthday in 2011. So I think I turned 16 that year. And I got it for my birthday, and I absolutely loved it. I loved that game so much, I brought it to college with me a couple of years later, and I played it there, and my roommates loved it. It's a great game. The thing is, though, is that 2K, they really haven't put out a lot of great WWE games. I'm not the greatest person to ask about this. I mean, I played WWE 2K20. It glitched so much. And I don't even do anything extensive. I do all the basic stuff. It glitched at the fucking menu. Like, come on, dude. That kind of turned me off from playing the game anymore, just because it annoyed the shit out of me. Anyway, though, with Battlegrounds, it could have promise. I don't like the graphics for Charlotte and Becky. I thought they looked ridiculous. For Cena and Rock, they look good. The weird looks for Charlotte and Becky, it looked like a kid's video game. It looked dumb. The concept is cool if it does follow the model of All-Stars, because All-Stars was really cool. It was different. It was totally different than the regular video games, and that was exactly why it worked. At the same time, though, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to get my hopes up like, oh, this is an amazing game. It's going to be so much different than the other games. It's still being produced by 2K. And 2K, by all accounts, from what I've heard, they put out some pretty cool games with like the NBA games and shit like that. WWE, it doesn't really seem like they've put out some good games in recent memory from 2K. So if they don't do well by the regular series, why would the Battleground games be any different? That's just what I don't understand. I'm glad they're taking a year off from producing WWE 2K21 or whatever, just because that last game had so many issues. So many issues. They probably shouldn't have put even that game out, to be honest. They should have held off on that game too. But at least they're trying something different. I will applaud them for that. And I won't poop on it until we actually play the game and it comes out in a couple months. But I am skeptical because it still is 2K. I loved All-Stars, but we'll see how this is when the game comes out in a number of months. His third question, with Cain Velasquez being released from WWE, do you think any UFC fighter or MMA fighter should join WWE after his release? I literally just got done writing about this for Daily DDT, so check out the article if you haven't already, about how Cain Velasquez's WWE release, in my opinion, should deter other UFC fighters from joining that company anytime soon. And by that company, I mean WWE. That's not to say every former MMA fighter has been buried by WWE. Far from it. I mean, you look at Brock Lesnar, who granted was already in WWE, but Ken Shamrock was a star for the short time he was there for. Ronda Rousey utilized very well. She was a star for the short time she was there for. Matt Riddle's currently doing very well in NXT. Shayna Baszler's been doing very well in the few years she's been with WWE and NXT, now on the main roster. So it's not like, oh, every former UFC fighter is going to be buried in WWE. Not exactly the case. But with Cain Velasquez, though, not that he was going to be WWE champion, nor should he have been WWE champion. But like they had the chance there to make a lot of money with Brock and Cain too, in a rematch from their first fight 10 years ago. Like it was a natural story, but they rushed into it way too fucking quick. Why would you do that? Cain had zero experience in wrestling. He had like 1 or 2 professional wrestling matches under his belt before he faced off with Brock at that Crown Jewel show. Now, granted, Ronda Rousey didn't have, I think, any matches before she wrestled at WrestleMania a number of years ago. Cain, though, going into the Brock match, at least Ronda Rousey had been training for a long time. Cain had not been. He was injured. He had not been training. He was just signed, and they rushed into the match within 3 weeks. They were building towards that Rousey match at WrestleMania for, 2 or 3 months? The Cain-Brock match got blown off within weeks, which was a fucking mistake. So that happened. And then that was it. We never saw him again. And they just let him go. So I don't understand that part of it. I don't understand why you would bring this guy in, do that one match, and then proceed to do absolutely nothing with the guy. I said months ago, I didn't want to see him win the Royal Rumble. I think that would have been a mistake. I thought they were going to set up Cain and Brock too for WrestleMania. I just don't understand how the company goes from thinking, oh, we're going to do Brock and Cain 2 at WrestleMania, to then releasing the guy. I know a pandemic happened, and that was probably a factor. Like, we're paying this guy so much money, we can save a lot of money by just letting him go. I mean, I guess that's the case, but I mean that's definitely a factor. But I'm sure there's more you could have done with a guy than just letting him go. Like, I don't know. It seems like part of it, too, was that they rushed to sign him because he was also interested in going to AEW. So they're like, oh, let's throw all this money at the guy just to have him sign with WWE, just to have him sign with us, so he doesn't go to the competition. And it ended up fucking them big time because they did absolutely nothing with the guy. We got a shitty match out of it at Crown Jewel, which went all of 2 minutes. They buried him right then and there by having him get beat by Brock Lesnar in a minute and a fucking half. What a fucking joke. And then that was it. His career was over at that point, but they should not have booked that guy like that. They should not have booked Cain Velasquez. He may not have been the most visually impressive person to look at, but still, I mean, like, he's a legitimate badass. He's beaten Brock before. It's a natural story, and they fucked it up by rushing into it, and it was a joke. It was a joke. So, in my opinion, that should, I mean, obviously no UFC fighters will sign with WWE during a pandemic anyway. It'll probably have to wait a while. But that, to me, sends the message, listen, if I want to raise my stock, I'm not going to go to WWE. If I'm a UFC fighter, after seeing what they did with Cain, why would I want to go to WWE? Obviously for the money. But in terms of being presented as a star, that's not going to happen. With Kane, like, yeah, it's all about the money, but after they chew you up and spit you out, how much money are you really going to be worth in any other organization? For example, Cain Velasquez was very heavily sought after by WWE and AEW 6 months ago. Why the fuck would AEW want this loser now? He was booked to look like a complete loser in the face of Brock Lesnar. The perception of Kane in the minds of fans has been damaged. And yeah, he could always be rehabbed. Anyone can be rehabbed. But his stock is not nearly as high as it was 2-3 years ago. Not 2-3 years ago. 6 months ago. I mean, probably 2-3 years ago as well, but because the guy's older now. So I do think that, yeah, being booked by WWE to look like a loser is going to hurt your stock, hurt your reputation. Listen, after being such a big top star in the UFC, a legitimate sport, and WWE is sports entertainment, whatever. But after this whole thing happened, after being booked to look like a complete loser in this fake fighting company, a lot of UFC fighters don't like WWE as it is. You know, Conor McGregor was speaking shit about it, which I'm sure was partly his character at the time. I'm sure he would thrive in WWE, given his personality and everything else, and he could sell tickets within an instant. But everyone else, though, like, why would you want to come over? After seeing, Brock and Ronda do well, but after the Cain Velasquez, incident, why would I want to come over? By this fake fighting company to be booked to look like a complete fucking loser. Why? It just doesn't make any sense to me right now. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, will winning the Cruiserweight Classic remain the biggest achievement of TJP's career? I mean, I would say so. Winning the first ever highly touted Cruiserweight tournament in WWE history, which was a great tournament, by the way. WWE has tried and failed with the whole Cruiserweight thing so many times over the years that you kind of tend to forget how many times they've tried with it. But that time, it definitely had the most momentum of any of them, just because there were a lot of great wrestlers in that tournament. The matches were amazing. A lot of people loved the tournament. It was a very big success, all things considered. And TJP has the distinction of winning the very first one, the one and only Cruiserweight Classic. So with that being said, in WWE no less, it wasn't even like it was Impact or whatever. And he's done other stuff elsewhere. He's been in Ring of Honor. He's a former X Division champion in Impact, which is where he is now again. But it's not going to compare to the success that he had in WWE, at least early on. Yeah, he floundered after winning the championship, or after losing the championship. He did absolutely nothing for the remainder of his run in WWE. But he will forever be known as the first person to ever win, and the only person to ever win the Cruiserweight Classic in WWE, and be the first ever relaunched, whatever, the first ever Cruiserweight champion under this current incarnation of the championship. So no one can ever take that away from him, and I think that's pretty cool. But no, I don't think anything will ever come close to beating that accolade accomplishment for him anywhere else he goes from this point forward. And the guy's almost 40 too. You wouldn't think so. He doesn't look like he's almost 40, but he's definitely closer to the end of his career than he is the beginning. So how much more can he really accomplish going forward? I'm not saying that he can't accomplish anything, but I feel like his best days are probably behind him, and he had that success, and I don't really see it coming anywhere near as high as it was a couple of years ago when he won that Cruiserweight Classic back in 2016. His second question, do you see Darby Allin scoring an upset win over Cody in the TNT title tournament? I don't. I mean, I could see a situation where he could, but I think it's more likely that Cody wins tonight, beats Darby, and we get Cody and Lance Archer double or nothing. I think that's something a lot of people forget too. If this was going down on TV, if they were doing the finals of the tournament on Dynamite, then yes, I could see them doing Darby and Archer, and then doing Archer as champion versus Cody at the pay-per-view. But the last time I checked, they're doing the finals of the tournament at the pay-per-view itself. So with that being said, I do think it's going to be Cody winning tonight. Archer obviously beats Dustin Rhodes. I mean, that'd be ridiculous if he didn't. And then you do Cody and Archer at the pay-per-view. They've been building towards it for a while now. It makes sense. Because if you do Darby Allin and Archer at the pay-per-view, and as awesome as that sounds, what do you do with Cody? I wouldn't want to see Cody and MJF revisited just yet. And MJF isn't even on the show right now, so you can't do that. There really isn't anyone else in my mind, off the top of my head, that would make sense to face Cody at that pay-per-view if it's not Lance Archer. So, could I see Darby winning? Sure. Do I think he will? No. I think Cody wins tonight. Archer wins tonight. We get Cody and Archer at the pay-per-view. to determine the inaugural AEW TNT champion. His third question, do you think that Rey Mysterio is the Ricky Steamboat of his generation in terms of primarily being a babyface? That's a very good comparison. I would probably say so. I mean, obviously, Rey Mysterio isn't like the current Ricky Steamboat. Rey Mysterio's been around forever. I don't know how long Ricky Steamboat's career was, and he had a lot of great moments in WWE for the short time he was there for, but his career was not nearly as illustrious, in my opinion, in WWE as Rey Mysterio's. And Rey Mysterio has had a great career everywhere he's gone. And Ricky Steamboat did too. I mean, obviously he had that iconic series of matches with Ric Flair in the NWA, WCW, whatever, in the 80s. It's tough to say, but in terms of being a babyface, if that's what you're talking about, for sure. There's very few people who can get away with being a babyface their entire career and never get booed. Not that Rey Mysterio has never been booed, like he was booed when he won the fucking World Heavyweight Championship or WrestleMania 22, but that was Chicago, different story. Overall, Rey Mysterio has been very well liked for a very long time, and he's never had to go heel. I think he was heel for a very short cup of coffee and I almost said an Impact. Although it sounds like something that Impact would have done years ago. In WCW, when he was unmasked and he was doing, I think, the Latino World Order shit, I think he may have been a heel then. Other than that, though, he's never been a heel as far as I know. So with that being said, yeah, Ricky Steamboat, Rey Mysterio are the only two people I can think of who could get away with being a babyface their entire career and always thrive in that role. They're like the ultimate underdogs, very likable people. I mean, it's a different time now, though. If Ricky Steamboat came up today, would he have been as well liked for as long as he was? Maybe not. He may not have been. The crowd may have turned on him at some point. They may have been forced to turn him heel. I thought Sami Zayn was a perennial babyface. I thought he was the quintessential babyface. Him, Bayley, Dakota Kai, people like that, and they're all turned heel. They've all been turned heel in WWE. I think I mentioned Bayley, Sami Zayn. Who was the other one? Shinsuke Nakamura. There's so many. Daniel Bryan. They're all the quintessential baby faces, and they've all been heel at one point or another, and a lot of them are still here, are still heel now, you know? So, yes, Rey Mysterio, I don't think they would ever turn him heel in the remainder of his career. I think he's going to be babyface until the day he retires, as he should be. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, what are your thoughts on this idea? So he said, Murphy should replace Apollo Crews in Money in the Bank and win it, and that's what starts a feud between him and Seth Rollins, with Seth trying to get Murphy to give him the briefcase. It's a very good idea. The only issue with it is that I think it's still too soon for a Rollins-Murphy feud. I think they could drag on the Murphy-Rollins alliance for a while. Even without AOP, they could still stick with that as like Murphy being Rollins' right-hand man, his, not his whipping boy, but like his, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not his sidekick, but like, like his right-hand man, I guess is the right word to use here, with it being a cult and whatnot. It just makes sense. His protege. That's the word I'm looking for. They can get away with doing that for a little while longer. Murphy isn't ready for that big breakout babyface push right now anyway. They have a lot of babyfaces on Raw. Edge is there on and off. Drew's their top babyface. They have Ricochet still waiting in the wings, although he's in the tag team division right now. They have him. They have Rey Mysterio. They have Aleister Black. Apollo Crews is getting a push right now. They don't really need Murphy to be, to break out on his own to be a breakout babyface. They're pretty good in that department right now on Raw. So I wouldn't do that quite yet. Down the road, maybe, but I want to see the spot stick with Apollo. Although they announced he would have to be taken out of the match, I really hope it's a work, and I hope they work him back into the match, because he deserves it. I mean, the guy's been slept on for so long now. He's finally getting some momentum. He's finally getting some chances to showcase his skills, finally getting the spotlight, and they take him right out. Like, what the fuck, So, anyway, I hope they don't take him out, but if they do, the spot going to Murphy isn't a bad idea. I don't really want to see Murphy win. I think just Aleister Black makes more sense. Not that he screams the type of person like, I'm going to cash in opportunistically. But, Murphy, I guess, would make sense, and it would be a good, what's the word I'm looking for here? A storyline tool to get to Rollins and Murphy at some point, but I just think it's too soon for that. Just like it's too soon to be breaking up Miz and Morrison, though it looks like they might be doing that anyway. So I rule out nothing in WWE in terms of it's too soon, it's too late. They never really do things at the right time. So, again, that wouldn't surprise me if they did do that, if they did go down that route. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the YouTube Machine. Check out his awesome show, Real Honesty with John Ritland, right here, on YouTube, right there. I sound like Mick Foley. Right here on the YouTube Machine. His first question was, so Jinder Mahal returned on Raw. You don't think WWE would be stupid enough to make him WWE champion again, do you? That's a good question. I don't want to say no. Anything can happen. They could put the title on fucking Vince again if they wanted to. I mean, they could do anything they want. Do I think they will? No. Just because I feel like if they were going to do that, if they were going to stick with Jinder as a main event guy, they would have done it by now. I feel like they tried it, it didn't work, and they just put him right back where he belongs in the mid-card. Let alone in the undercard, because he was a part of the fucking 24/7 title picture for a while there before he got hurt last year. It's not like he was even in the mid-card up until the day he got hurt. He was on main event last year before he got hurt, so... The mid-card, I mean, I could deal with it. You guys know I hate Jinder. I'm not a big Jinder fan at all. I can stomach Jinder as a mid-card guy. I don't want to see him as the US or IC champion. But in the mid-card on Raw, fine, whatever. I don't want to see him as WWE champion. I don't want to see him, I mean, again, with Drew, I feel like as a one-off match, it would be okay. Drew and Jinder is a one-off match on Raw, given their history. I'm totally fine with that, provided that Drew wins and that's it. Or as like a mini feud on Raw, I'm totally okay with it. As a SummerSlam main event, Drew versus Jinder, fuck no, no thank you. Not even the great Drew can get a great match out of Jinder fucking Mahal. So, no, I don't know of the company. I don't think the company is that dumb to go back to Jinder as a main event guy. I do think they tried it, they gave it a shot, it didn't work, and they moved on. Good for them. Good for them, because Jinder had 0 good matches as WWE champion. Aside from the very last one, with AJ when he lost the belt, coincidentally enough. The guy never really had any above-average matches as WWE champion. You could say the exact same thing about AJ, like, oh, AJ never had any great matches himself. Listen, AJ had infinitely better matches than Jinder Mahal did as WWE champion. Do not even argue with me on that. Jinder Mahal's reign fucking sucked. I don't care how many boos he got, how hated he was. The matches sucked, the promos sucked, SmackDown sucked, the pay-per-view sucked. Everything sucked with Jinder Mahal's title reign, so don't even give me that shit. At least AJ's reign had some better moments and better matches than whatever the fuck that Jinder Mahal championship reign was, okay? Anyway, no, I don't think they'll put the belt back on, but you never know. I'll just say that much. John's second question here. With the pandemic putting a stop to a majority of live wrestling events for the immediate future, have you been diving into any older wrestling shows to get your wrestling fix, so to speak? I have been. I'm glad you asked me that question. Well, first of all, John does a lot of great retro content reviews on his channel, so check those out if you haven't already. He's been doing a lot more of that. I mean, John's been doing that forever, but a lot more lately with the whole pandemic stuff. He reviews movies too. But with wrestling, there's not a lot of wrestling going on right now. I've been specifically told by websites that I write for, hey, focus on the nostalgic stuff, which is why I'm writing all Attitude Era themed stuff this week for Bleacher Report. I wrote about the top 7 best Attitude Era feuds on Monday for Bleacher Report. On Friday, I'm giving 10 reasons why WrestleMania 17 is the best WrestleMania is the best event of the Attitude Era, but also the greatest event of all time, in my opinion. So I'm talking about that on Friday because there's just not a lot to break down in the world of wrestling right now between WWE, AEW. There's not a lot going on without audiences. So anyway, have I been watching older shows? I have been. I usually like to do that stuff for Wrestle Rant. I just haven't had the time. But what I think Alexis's family and I will be doing going forward. So Alexis's dad said to me a couple of days ago, or about a week ago, you know, I want to watch an old WrestleMania. We didn't get the chance to have a WrestleMania party this year due to the current circumstances, of course. And we watched WrestleMania together, but it just wasn't the same as it would have been had this whole thing not been, going on. So we said, let's watch an old WrestleMania, one of the best ones you can think of. And then I'm like, let's watch WrestleMania 17. They've never seen it before. None of them. Even her dad, who's been watching a long time, I don't think has ever seen WrestleMania 17. Alexis surely has never seen it before. Her family's never seen it. So, and I was going to write about it anyway for an article for Bleacher Report. So I'm like, hey, fuck, let's watch WrestleMania 17. We watched that on Sunday. Had a great time. It was a great show. I mean, I love WrestleMania 17. It didn't really dawn on me until I watched it back on Sunday how good of a show it was. And they realized, like, holy shit, this is a great show. Alexis really liked it. It's a show she said she would watch back again. And even her dad, who was hard to please with this type of stuff, said that was a great show. That was one of the best shows I've ever seen. He called Austin and Rock in the main event one of the greatest matches he's ever seen. And that's saying a lot because the guy's seen a lot. So, yeah, and because that went so well, I'm like, hey, let's take a day out of the weekend going forward, Saturday or Sunday. This week, I think it's going to be Sunday again. We're gonna watch some classic content in the network I don't think they've ever seen before. My favorite pay-per-views on the WWE Network. I gave a whole playlist of stuff to watch in the network about a month or so ago on Wrestle Rant Radio, my quarantine playlist for the WWE Network, which you should check out, by the way. I think the whole clip is here on the channel. I put it up in the Wrestle Rant Radio excerpts playlist. But I put together a whole list of pay-per-views to watch on the WWE Network that I don't think they've ever seen before. So I think this weekend, we're going to watch WrestleMania 3. Her dad may have seen it already, but it's been so long. I haven't seen that pay-per-view in years. It's one of the better WrestleManias. It's historic, and they had the greatest Intercontinental Championship match of all time, in my opinion, on that show between Steamboat and Savage. They have the historic main event of Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, and a couple of other things. So I thought that would be a good pay-per-view to watch. We may watch the shows in order. We may not. Like, I have some recent stuff. I have some old stuff. I have stuff from the 90s. I have stuff from the 2000s, 2010s. I have a lot of pay-per-views on this list. So with that being said, I'm like, hey, let's watch WrestleMania 3. He also said he wants to watch something with the Von Erichs. He's a big Von Erich guy. So I'll ask you guys this. If you know any Von Erich matches, pay-per-views, like from WCW, NWA, whatever, available to watch in the network that you think would be good for him to watch or for me to show him, whatever, let me know. Alexis did recommend the Von Erichs documentary on Dark Side of the Ring. I mean, that would be a good thing to watch too. I think he was thinking more of a match involving the Von Erichs than a paper or than a documentary. We may watch that at some point too. But yeah, let me know if you know of any good, obviously the Von Erichs and the Freebirds, but like of any good Von Erich shows, good Von Erich matches available on the WWE Network, and I might show them when we hang out this weekend. Let's see. Next question, also from John. Has WWE's booking of the Four Horsewomen over the years stunted the growth, of a majority of the women's roster? It just seems like more of the women should be utilized a little bit better. I just talked about this last week because RJ asked a similar question, where it seems like outside of the Four Horsewomen, none of the women really have any growth. It's not the fault of the Four Horsewomen. Listen, I would take the Four Horsewomen over anything any day of the week. And the fact that, and by that I mean, like 10 years ago, we had nobody. There wasn't even anyone they were really focusing on. Yeah, maybe Beth Phoenix and Kelly, maybe Michelle McCool. And even they weren't as good as the Four Horsewomen are today. At least we have some women who are stars. It's better than nothing, but I do agree. It's not their fault. It's WWE's fault for putting all their eggs in one basket and not attempting to build up more women outside of the Four Horsewomen. You know, Bianca Belair just arrived. That's great. But we need more than just her to really build around for this women's division. Dana Brooke, to me, is damaged goods. I don't give a shit about Dana Brooke. Carmella's all right. They've tried with her before. She's decent. You know, Alexa Bliss is in that conversation. They should try a little bit more with Nikki Cross. She's great. Nia Jax is just terrible. Asuka should mean more than she does. Kairi Sane should mean more than she does. They have Shayna Baszler. She should be a top player in that division. So hopefully they can continue along with her push and utilize her properly. But yeah, it's not the fault of Bayley and Banks and Becky and Charlotte. It's WWE's fault for not putting more stock into the other women. So hopefully they can do that moving forward. They did it with Ronda Rousey and then she left. So they got to do better than that though. At Scarlet One, best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars, number 28. Let's see, we're already over an hour in here, so I got to go pretty quickly through the next remaining questions. But best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars, number 28. The best of NXT and Dynamite last week. I really liked the interim NXT Cruiserweight Championship tournament matches. I thought they were all good, all three of them. I also liked the Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae's promos, their segment that aired, that video package. And speaking of which, the video packages on both shows, on both Dynamite and NXT last week, I thought were great. More video packages, please. Especially now where they shouldn't be replaying old content, but if they can utilize the time well with video packages and character profiles and sit-down segments, sit-down interviews and shit like that, I think that's great. So I really like that aspect of both shows last week. From Dynamite, there wasn't a lot that I loved. I liked the Matt Hardy promo. The Darby Allin-Sammy Guevara match was definitely the best match on the show. The opener I thought was great. Everything else was just kind of there. It was just squash matches for the most part. The worst of both shows, Dustin Rhodes versus Kip Sabian was a good match, but it did not belong in the main event in the main event spot. I know, given the current circumstances, they kind of had to do it. I mean, I don't know. I would have put Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara in that spot over Dustin Rhodes and Kip Sabian. I know if Dustin lost, he would have retired. Get the fuck out of here. We knew he wasn't losing to Kip fucking Sabian, obviously. So, I wasn't a big fan of that match. And then from NXT, it wasn't terrible. It was a fine match, but the whole Dexter Lumis Velveteen Dream thing versus the Undisputed Era, it came completely out of nowhere. They furthered the feud between Damian Priest and Keith Lee, which I liked. But the whole Dream Loomis thing, it was just bizarre. It's just bizarre right now. So if that's the worst thing on the show, then you know both shows are pretty good. But I thought those were the weakest points of both shows last week. Hopefully this week is better. Scarlet One, second question. What do you make of dancing characters in WWE? It seems like one of those archetypes, I think is how you pronounce that word, they, or at least Vince McMahon, have a real fondness for. No Way Jose was the latest attempt at it, but do you think we'll be seeing another try sooner or later? Absolutely. We have the dancing characters constantly. I can name 3 off the bat from the last decade alone. No Way Jose, Adam Rose, and Brodus Clay. How long did any of those guys last on the main roster? Well, let's think about it for a second. No Way Jose debuted in an NXT in 2016. He was called up in 2018. He was only on the main roster for 2 years before he was fired. Adam Rose, he was brought up to the main roster in 2014 after years of fucking, floundering in NXT as Leo Kruger, which I thought was a cool character, but they just weren't interested in bringing it up to the main roster. He struck gold to the Adam Rose character. He went absolutely nowhere. They fired him by mid-2016, so he also lasted 2 years. Brodus Clay, called up as the Funkasaurus in January of 2012. He, too, was fired in mid-2014. So, I ask you, how long of a shelf life do these characters really have? Disco Inferno, I know that was WCW. That didn't really last too long. I'm trying to think. Fandango, he's still there, but that Fandango buzz died down real fucking quick. He's still there again, but he's been there for 7 years now, probably longer, because he was a part of the original NXT and FCW. He's been there for a long time. But even the Fandango shit died down within a year. Probably not even that, 6 months. So yeah, the dancing stuff never really works. These people have a job for life if they want it, in terms of they're a good opening act, but they'll never be more than that. No Way Jose was utilized pretty good early on in NXT. He had some momentum. He was over. And then he got serious, which I thought was great. And then after the Austin Aries feud, kind of fizzled out, that was it for him in NXT. He was a glorified loser from that point forward. So, the dancing gimmicks never really worked. The singing gimmicks are a different story. Jillian Hall was fired pretty quickly, but after she started doing the whole Britney Spears knockoff shit. But Elias was a singing gimmick, and he's lasted a while. And he's been, he hasn't won any championships except for the 24/7 title. But he's been decently successful. He's gotten over. He's, maintained momentum, stuff like that. So, anyway, he's worked. But other than that, Adam Rose, Brodus Clay, No Way Jose, all flops. And it will not stop them from doing it again. It's just a never-ending cycle with this company. They never really realize that it doesn't work. And the thing is, No Way Jose never really had a high ceiling for potential, for success. Brodus Clay should have gone a lot farther than he did. The Funkasaurus thing was just fucking dumb. It was a dumb character, and it was over early on, but they just never really developed it at all. Adam Rose also could have gone farther, and they just didn't do it. Scarlet One's next question: what did you make of Triple H's comments insisting WrestleMania should continue being 2 nights? I heard the clip on Corey Graves' After the Bell podcast, and I totally agree. I'm surprised he even said that. I'm surprised someone from WWE that high up on the totem pole would say that we want WrestleMania to be 2 nights. Usually, like I've said before, I don't love the idea, but I thought it worked this year. Given the current circumstances, it kind of had to be 2 nights. But otherwise, I think it's a good idea to explore in the future. I really do. I think if they could try it more often, even with the full arena, I'm not sure how they would work out. And I said this about a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure how it would work in terms of, selling tickets. Do you get half off with each ticket? Do you get both days? Is it a combo package? I think you could just move TakeOver very well to Wednesday. The Wednesday before WrestleMania weekend, which, they're already in the city by that point anyway, so they could do it. They could definitely do it on a Wednesday. And, I think it could work, but that's just me. I'm very happy to see Triple H feels the same way. Because, in a perfect world, you cut down the card, you take off all the losers off the show. Not everyone has to have a WrestleMania match. Not everyone has to have a WrestleMania moment. They're special because not everyone gets it. That's the point. I don't work there. I'm sure I would love my WrestleMania bonus. So I could see why they would want to get everyone on the show. But it didn't always work that way years ago. They would have a multi-man battle royal on the pre-show, which sometimes didn't even make the show. It would be on like the DVD sometimes. And that was it. That's all you fucking need. You don't need fatal four-ways and six-pack challenges and all this other dumb shit. Just get everyone in on a battle royal on the pre-show. And they still do that today, and they still do all the multi-man matches. And they still have 20 million matches because they have so many people on their roster. They're not going to go back to doing that, I guarantee you. So if they want to insist on getting everyone on the show, then make it 2 nights and you can do it. Hey, New Japan Pro Wrestling did it. They had like 5 hours per show each day, which I thought was a little ridiculous. But other than that, I might be wrong, but as far as I know, both days were like 5 hours. That's crazy. WWE's both shows, I think, were 3 hours each. And I don't count the pre-show because there was barely anything of significance on either pre-show this year, on either kickoff show. I think 3 hours is perfect. A 3-hour WrestleMania both nights each, I think is absolutely perfect. Will they do it? Probably not. I like the idea, and I thought it was refreshing to hear Triple H feel the same way. Did you hear about the Matt Jackson versus Nick Jackson match on Being the Elite episode 200? Not only did I hear about it, I watched it. I watched Being the Elite. I watch Being the Elite every week. I thought it was fun. It was exactly what you would expect from that type of show. Being the Elite is so off the wall, over the top, dumb, crazy, stupid, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It's not meant to be taken seriously as an actual match, of course. But for what it was, they brawled all over their fucking, compound, the Young Bucks compound. It was, it was a total joke, but in the best way possible. They're looking for ways to fill their shows, and I thought as a 200 episode celebration, I thought it was perfect. They can't really bring in all the faces of the past under the current circumstances. So they're making do with what they have, and I thought it was fun. People should check it out. It's about maybe 20 minutes in length. It's not like an hour, so you're not spending a whole hour watching the Young Bucks fight each other. Don't worry. And Scarlet One's final question here, how do you feel about squash matches? And they say, this question was sparked by seeing some particular arguments over Kenny Omega's match against Alan Angels on Dynamite. And I guess Ryan Satin had something to say about it. Dave Meltzer had something to say about it. Here's my 2 cents. First of all, the whole squash match thing, do I want a whole episode of Dynamite focused on squash matches? Absolutely not. But at the same time, though, they don't really have much of a choice. They're working with a limited roster. They're doing the same thing on Dark. Dark is actually a shorter show now with 2 squash matches, and the squash matches are fine. They give the jobber some offense, and, Brody Lee shouldn't be selling for Lee Johnson. But look, if it's best friends or whoever, then I'm totally okay with it. The Kenny Omega match, a lot of people had an issue with it. Dude, if it's a debuting superstar, here's my opinion on this. I thought this was so dumb to get angry over. Who gives a fuck? It's Kenny Omega. Should it have taken Kenny Omega 6 or 7 minutes to beat this guy? Probably not. The guy had a very memorable showing. I remembered his name, Alan Angels, because he got so much offense over Kenny Omega. Can you do that every week? No. As a once in a while thing, I think it works. I do think it works. For someone that's debuting, or someone that the fans don't really know, having this jobber get so much offense over them, I don't like that. That I have an issue with, because it kind of overshadows the debuting person and who they're supposed to be focusing on. But if it's a case like this where Kenny Omega's a made man, he doesn't lose anything from giving offense to a jobber. Realistically, yes, it doesn't really make much sense. Kenny Omega should beat him in 2 minutes. But it doesn't bother me. The guy's a made man. Who gives a shit? And they had a really fun match. It's better than having Kenny Omega go in there and beat these people in 2 minutes. They need to fill TV time somehow. You got to think of it from that standpoint, too. You got to think of it you got to think of it from that standpoint as well. And not only that, but also, it's going to get old after a while. They have to find ways to keep things interesting. And allowing Kenny Omega to go in there, look like the Omega of old, even against the jobber, I think is fine. I had no issue with that whatsoever. I know it's personal preference and other people don't feel the same way, and that's totally okay. For me personally, I had no issue with it. I thought it was fun. You can't do it all the time, but I thought the guy Alan Angels looked good in defeat. He had a very good showing, and Kenny Omega was Kenny Omega. So to me, there's no real complaint there. There are much bigger things to complain about in wrestling and with AEW than a fucking jobber getting offense over Kenny Omega. Who cares? Last question of the day, also from, not even also, this is his first question for the episode. At RJ_Marceau, Mr. Marceau's question was, who are some talents in NXT and AEW you would like to see get more of a push/TV time? That's a very good question. I wrote down a bunch of people here. I wrote down 3 for the men and 3 for the women. Kushida's getting some TV time now, more now than probably ever before, as part of the interim NXT Cruiserweight Championship Tournament. The guy needs a push, though. I mean, Kushida's been here for a year. He's a very special talent. He deserves more focus and more TV time than he's getting currently. I don't want to see him relegated to the Cruiserweight division. It's a good get for the Cruiserweight division, but he is better than that. I know he was doing that in New Japan, but they could do better than that in WWE. So Kushida, I want a real push from. The rest of these people are all kind of like recruits of the PC and up-and-coming people you don't really see all the time, that I think would be cool to see get focused on more and get more TV time. So here are the 5 names that I came up with. 2 for the men, 3 for the women, of people you may not really know, or people that aren't regulars on NXT at the moment. For the men, Denzel DeJournette. I know he faced Bobby Lashley this weekend, Raw, got squashed. He faced Sheamus on SmackDown a few weeks ago and got squashed. He faced Rollins on Raw, I think a week or 2 ago, and he got squashed. He's better than being a job guy. He got hired a few years ago. He has an amateur wrestling background, I believe. I've seen him in action on Evolve before. He's very good, very nice guy. He has potential. I don't want to say this as a racist thing, but like he reminds me a lot of Jason Jordan, maybe even more so. Not just because they're both black, obviously, and not just because they both wear a fucking singlet, but because, I don't know, just the way he wrestles and his charisma. Jason Jordan, people had an issue with as a single star. I think Denzel DeJournette, if focused on properly, could be a really successful single star. The more you job him out to people like this, it's not going to help his cause any down the road. But for now, I think it's okay. He's a guy I would love to focus on. I would love to see get focused on at some point sooner rather than later. He's really, really good. Rick Boogs, what was his name? Eric Bugenhagen about a year and a half ago. What the fuck happened to him? He had all that momentum. He faced, I don't even remember, but he was on NXT TV once or twice, and he was like an overnight sensation. Now, I wouldn't classify him as another Adam Rose or another No Way Jose just because he has an afro or whatever. He's more than that. He's a really good athlete. The guy is fucking jacked. He's got charisma for days. He reminds me of he's Freddie Mercury in wrestling. He's like wrestling's Freddie Mercury. And I think he's a hell of a get for NXT. The issue is that they have not even had him on the show from what I've seen in the last year and a half since he made his debut on the show a year and a half ago. I don't even think he won the match. I think he went in there and got beat by someone. And if he did win, then what the hell happened? Because we have not seen the guy since. They shortened his name to Rick Boogs. I thought Eric Bugenhagen was totally okay, but whatever. NXT shortens names all the time, as does the main roster, so whatever. It was going to happen at some point, I guess. He's a guy that I really want to see more of. What the fuck happened to Rick Boogs? The guy's awesome. For the women, Camilla, we saw her last week, Jessie Camilla. She's been in NXT for a long time now. I know Aaliyah has too. Aaliyah just does nothing for me. I think Jessie Camilla has more potential than Aaliyah. She has that raw potential. She has a good look. She's decent in the ring. She needs more focus. She needs more character development. If she gets that, I think she can be a real player in that division. She doesn't have the same amateur, the same independent wrestling background that a Dakota Kai does or a Tegan Nox, which is probably why people don't talk about her as much. But she's another one. I've seen her in Evolve before. She's very good. From what I've seen, she has a good look. I would like to see her get a real chance at some point. Casey Catanzaro, you know who Casey Catanzaro is, not just because she's Ricochet's girlfriend. I think they're still together. But she's been on the show a few times. She supposedly quit wrestling and then came back a couple of months ago at the onset of 2020, back in that Battle Royal in January or so. She got a big reaction. And we really haven't seen much of her since. Again, she doesn't have an independent wrestling background, but she's a great athlete. She's good from what I've seen. She's very small, but she can move around with the best of them. And yeah, I want to see more of Casey Catanzaro, so I really want to see more of her, get to know her more. Not to say that she'll be the next NXT Women's Champion. And I know they have a lot of women in that NXT Women's division. I looked up the whole list of people who work for the company in NXT for this video, for this specific question. And it didn't really dawn on me. It didn't really dawn on me until I saw the list of the women in the division that I realized, holy shit, like they have a lot of women on TV right now for the women. On NXT, that is. They have a lot of females on TV. So she won't get a chance anytime soon, but she is good. She has potential, and she has a lot of charisma too. She's that like plucky baby face that you can root for. So Casey Catanzaro is another one I would like to see more from. And lastly, Santana Garrett. She's very good. To me right now, she screams like Deonna Purrazzo 2.0 as someone who's a good wrestler, but isn't like a big, like a Tegan Nox or like a Shayna Baszler or a Rhea Ripley who screams like, oh, next women's champion. She won't be at that level, but she seems to me like a good worker who they brought in to keep her from going to AEW and then just didn't have any plans for her. And she's only been here a couple of months, like 6 months maybe. So it's not as bad as Deonna, who's been here for like 2 years, who had been there for 2 years and then got, released because she just wasn't happy and she was ready to leave. Santana should give it more time before she, leaves, but I get the gist that she wanted to be there for a long time. She's been brought in a lot over the years for NXT squash matches as far back as like 2013, dude. That's when I remember first seeing like Santana in NXT. And she's been brought back, quite a few times over the years. She worked for Impact for a while in 2014. She's finally in NXT. I know they have a lot of women right now. I just said that, but, hopefully at some point they give her a chance. We need to get to know her personality more. If she doesn't have a personality, then maybe whatever, but they got to give her a chance. They never really gave Deonna Purrazzo a chance. She deserved the chance. She never really got one. Santana Garrett, to me, fills that void of someone they can bring in to just lose to people, like Bianca Belair and people like that. That's how they view her, but she can be more with that in due time. I really hope she doesn't end up as the next, like, Tainara Conchi, who's always losing to people. She deserves a real shot at being a real star in that division, in my opinion. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 335 here today for hashtag AskGSM April 29th, 2020. We are at an hour and 20 minutes, over the hour and 20 minute mark. Holy shit. You guys send in a lot of questions, and you guys know I like to talk, so it really should come as no surprise that the video is over an hour long at this point. But nonetheless, though, if you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section in this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So, on to May. This is our last episode in the month of April. I know it took a while, but for whatever reason, it feels like March dragged on forever due to the circumstances of what happened. And then April just breezed by. I feel like April came and gone like that, There we go. I'm trying to snap. Came and gone like that very quickly. But, I'm looking forward to May. I know we're all quarantining right now. We're at home, stuck at home. But still, there's some stuff to look forward to. Money in the Bank still coming up in early May. And AEW has Double or Nothing. I know a lot of people agree that, they probably should not be running shows right now. But, it is what it is. If they're going to do it, at least we'll try to enjoy it, So, anyway, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. We'll be back next Wednesday with episode 336 of hashtag AskGSM. Until then, guys, have a great one. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.